Alrighty, welcome to today's episode of Climate Chat, reaching you live from Lagos, Nigeria, where over the past 2 days, the Nigeria Climate Change Response Program has gathered several journalists from the southern part of the country to have conversations around climate change and also build their capacity to report better, especially the issues of climate change. And today on the show, I'll be having a quick chat with the key experts on communication and capacity building for the Nigeria Climate Response Program, Climate Change Response Program, and that is the person of Elizabeth Mwaniki. Good morning, and thank you for joining us to have this very quick conversation.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to this platform.
All right. So let's just start very quickly. We've had this workshop over a space of 3 days, and we saw journalists from all over the southern parts of Nigeria, Lagos, Enugu, Ibadan, Port Harcourt, just to name it. I would like us to start by addressing really what are you hoping that journalists walk away with as a collective group from capacity building events of this nature, especially under the climate change program.
Okay, I'll start by saying that the NCCRP, or the Nigeria Climate Change Response Program, is a project by the European Union, and it is implemented through the Ministry of Environment, and we work directly with the Department of Climate Change. And task 2 on the NCCRP project is on capacity building and communication, basically creating awareness on climate change issues in Nigeria, as well as, so capacity building for journalists is one of the ways in which we are raising awareness on climate change issues. And by training journalists, we would like to use the power of mass media. We all know how powerful mass media is in reaching different audiences, and we want to use this platform to bring climate change issues to the forefront. Because sometimes you find that maybe when the media houses are covering climate change issues, sometimes it is pushed to the back, and sometimes it is random. Sometimes it only happens when something big happens. But we want this to be part of our daily conversation. And through this awareness, we hope that we take these conversations to our homes, to our schools, and to our communities. So through the capacity building workshop, we hope that the journalists will go back home to their different states and continue with this good work of bringing the climate change stories to the forefront, and as well as the use of social media. So we encourage journalists to use all platforms that they can use to make sure we get the message out there. We make sure climate change initiatives are documented, and not only documented, they are documented and disseminated.
Amazing. Two things that you say that stand out for me is the need to inform, and also how climate change is usually pushed to the back burner. I'd like us to start from the last one. One of the arguments that many media houses, journalists, and even others in the other stakeholders in the media space would push out is the fact that the media needs to be sustainable. They need money to run, and climate change is non-commercial. It often doesn't bring in the profit they are looking to get. What would you say to people like this?
I would say that climate change is cross-cutting. Like we were discussing in our workshop this week about climate action being part of one of the SDGs on climate action. But when we look at the SDGs, we see that they are interlinked. The SDGs is the Sustainable Development Goals. So when we are talking of climate change, we see how it affects SDG 2, which is on food security. Because when it floods and food is destroyed in the farms, then the country goes hungry. Again, when there is drought and there is no harvest, like it is happening right now in Nigeria,
yes,
we are having high prices of food items like tomatoes and pepper. So I hope that by bringing the climate change issues into the limelight, that people will see the connection. What we are doing here is connecting the dots, because every area of our lives is affected by the climate change. In fact, from the debates in the boardrooms, you find people talking about emissions. And then we are saying that there are few people who have big industries, like developed countries where there are industries. And some states, like people who are in the islands, people who live in the coast areas, some of the African countries, I would say, do not produce a lot of emissions, but they are suffering. So many people who are not contributing are suffering. So we hope that climate change is mainstreamed into our daily lives, so that every action that we take as the community, we know how it contributes to climate change. But not only that, climate change is here with us. Which action can we take as individuals to ensure that we can cope with climate change? And what actions can we ask our governments to take to ensure that at policy level, there is policy supporting the actions that we want on the ground?
Amazing. It comes back to the need to inform so that people can become have more awareness,
yes,
and make informed decisions, really.
Yes.
Which then, also goes back to the work that Nigerian journalists like myself are already doing to create awareness around climate change and keep these conversations in the spotlight.
Yes.
But there seems to be a lot of resistance from the people in terms of not being willing to share stories, and in some cases denying even the existence of climate change. I know that this program, this capacity building workshop and engagement of journalists, is one way that the NCCRP program is addressing this, right? But are there other ways that the NCCRP program covers or addresses the problem of misinformation, disinformation, or just the fact that there are a lot of myths around climate change?
I can say that NCCRP promotes the ethical practices of journalism and upholds the principles of journalism. So as much as it is possible, we would like to demystify all the myths on climate change and ensure that people are equipped with facts. That is why in the workshop we were talking about sources, about use of data, about networking with scientists, because they are the ones with the facts. They have this information and they can guide on how journalists can access this information. Again, one of the challenges that journalists shared in this workshop is about not able to get interviews, sometimes with officials. And as NCCRP, we hope that this is just one of the ways that through networking, we can encourage the government to open doors. As we have heard from DCC, they are very much willing to work.
That's the Department of Climate Change under the Ministry of Environment.
Yes, they are very much willing and looking forward to work with journalists. So we hope that this is one way of opening the door for journalists so that they can have as many sources as possible. But not only that, that even the government, the Ministry of Environment, can create room, a seat at the table for journalists to discuss these issues and bring them forth.
Absolutely, I think that's quite important, and it's a very key component of how we can take the conversation from mere opinions, myths that are spreading around, to having more credible conversations and solutions around climate change. Now let's take this beyond journalists, and the NCCRP program has a whole lot of components.
Yes.
And it would be interesting to know, especially for those watching us at home right now, it's interesting to know at the end of the day, how does this affect the ordinary man, right? Many people do not necessarily know these things. They don't know how to break it down and see that I have to be a part of this effort, I have to be a part of this conversation. Why should Zainab watching at home care about what the NCCRP is doing and the larger climate change conversation?
Zainab, as we were discussing in the workshop, one of the myths that we have out there is people say, this climate change issue is too complex for me. What can I do? I will leave this climate change issue to government, to the experts, to the policymakers. But this issue affects all of us. So we have to be involved. So one of the ways that NCCRP is one of the things that NCCRP is doing is supporting the government to make sure that they have the right framework on climate change. And then it is up to the task of us as citizens and journalists to make sure we sensitize people with the policies that are being implemented in the country, and also to follow up. You know, as we said, that journalists are the watchdog of the society.
Absolutely.
So we play that role by reminding them, this is what we've talked about, this is the policies that we've agreed on, why are they not being implemented? How are these policies affecting the people on the ground? That person who you are telling not to cut down the trees, we need to know the root causes. Why are they cutting the tree? And then provide alternatives. Because you cannot go to the ground and tell people you are causing climate change. You need first of all to look at things from their perspective and then explain to them and look for alternatives together. Most of the people we have on the ground, they have the solutions already. But how can we help them to tap into solutions so that they can be able to live their lives, they have sustainable livelihoods, but we are reducing the effects that this has on the environment. So that's what we are saying, yes.
Thank you so much. Finally, away from the NCCRP, I would like to just have your thoughts. I mean, we've seen a lot of things happening this year already. Climate change-induced flooding, the drought in some areas, affecting not just Nigeria, but even Kenya, where you come from.
Yes.
And I really would like us to end this conversation by you just sharing your thoughts, a charge, a call to action for people to go away with and know that they must be a part of this.
Yes, what I can say is climate change is here with us. It is affecting all of us, and we all have to put our hands together and move forward together. We should not leave anyone behind. And as you have said, this year we have had the issue of flooding in my country. We have seen drought in South Africa. Here in Nigeria, we've had a very serious heat wave happening. So we can see the consequences of climate change, but this did not happen in a single day. It has happened over time. The same way that it has happened over time, we need to start taking the small actions now so that we can mitigate the impacts of climate change and adapt to the impacts of climate change.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sure that Nigerians watching want to know about the Kenya Finance Bill, the Say No to Kenya Finance Bill, Say No to Finance Bill protest happening in Kenya right now. Just tell us one thing, that you want us to know about this protest.
Yeah, so I'm sure you have seen on the news about the protest, which is led by Generation Z, because they feel the burden, the tax burden, especially with the bill that is being discussed. It's not yet assented. It is under discussion right now, and the young people are saying that we feel the burden of over-taxation. So we had the Finance Bill 2023, which introduced some new taxes. The Finance Bill 2024 wanted to introduce more taxes than what was introduced in 2023. And the young people are leading this protest. They are saying, no, enough is enough. We want fair treatment because we are struggling with unemployment. So first create employment opportunities for us, and then tax us. So this is what is happening in Kenya right now. We are seeing the young people, but not just the young people, even their parents are feeling the burden. So that means that so many people are supporting the young people as well.
The young people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's becoming a business interview already, but let's just leave it here. Maybe we'll bring you on as a foreign correspondent to come talk about the protest. But thank you so much, Elizabeth Mwanaki. And there you have it on today's episode of Climate Chat. My guest has been Elizabeth Mwanaki from Kenya, and she is a key expert for communication and capacity building on the National Climate Change Response Program, NCCRP, here in Nigeria. And that will be all I can take on today's episode of the show. My name is Zainab Adetola. See you next week.